you're listening to She Shield, your one-stop pod for all topics personal safety. I'm your host, Sophia, and my goal is to help educate women and men on concealed carry, martial arts, and all topics self-defense. This episode is sponsored by Big Tex Ordnance, your soon-to-be favorite retailer for all of your firearms needs. BTO believes in only selling high-quality gear for responsibly armed citizens, as well as providing pre- and post-sale support. BTO values firearms training and supports firearms instructors nationwide. They even pay for their own staff to train with high-level instructors to ensure that when you, as the consumer, reach out, you are taken care of. Today, we have Aimee Langdon, the president of Langdon Tactical and LTD, Discover on the show. Damn it, I thought I was going to get it. I'm so excited. Aimee is actually... she's been on the podcast before, but we had some issues with the media. So this is take 2. And I'm so glad for her to be back. I love her personality and I think we flow really well. So I'm really excited you're here, Aimee. Please go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners.
What's up, guys? I'm Aimee Langdon, president of Langdon Tactical, and I have been in the gun industry for about 8 years now. Guns were new to me, but here we are doing all things shooting and training and running a business and getting to learn new things every single day.
Absolutely. And then come on a podcast and share it. And for those of you listening, if you hear us coughing, sneezing, tis the season for the viruses. Aimee and I just both took Dayquil, and we're going to do our best here, but we're both getting over some stuff.
Yeah, I'm not a smoker, so I may sound like one, but I promise I'm not. I've just lost my voice for the last 2 weeks, so it's coming back. We're grateful for that.
Absolutely, we are, because we were going to record, I think, last week and then this week, and yeah, it's everyone is sick. Everyone, like Elisa's sick, the woman who does our editing, everyone, like it's just
the season.
It is the season. Yes. Christmas is next week. This will actually air the week after Christmas. So for those of you listening, hope you had a great one. I think this is a great episode to kick off the new year with, because it will basically be that week. So, oh my goodness, we'll get to talk about some 2025 goals. That's been a really fun thing to ask guest speakers that have come on. But yeah, we did meet at A Girl and a Gun, didn't we? That was April 2020.
It was just last year or this year. It was just a couple months ago. Yeah. I know. The year has flown.
Whoa. Yeah. I had to just take a moment there. Yes. Oh my goodness. It was so fun to learn about your teaching experience there because you had some really unique encounters. And the first time we recorded this episode, you got to talk a little bit about that. So I'm definitely going to cue that up. And honestly, we should just go ahead and dive into it if you don't mind, because It was really lovely to meet you in person and then be able to jump on the podcast and talk about that experience. So what was it like to teach at A Girl and a Gun?
So I am not an instructor. I do not refer to myself as an instructor at all. I like to call myself a coach. I've been coaching my whole life, and getting the opportunity at A Girl and a Gun to coach women was phenomenal. It was very rewarding. And it was really fun to watch people have aha moments on some of the basic components that lead to shooting, but also just growing confidence at that base layer with firearms. I feel like every conversation that we were having and that people were sharing was that they came into guns because they were interested. They wanted to take responsibility for themselves, their family, or they just wanted to know more and they wanted to head down this firearms path, but they haven't necessarily made the time prior to A Girl and a Gun to take a long class or, explore other things that are out there and push themselves beyond kind of that comfort zone. And coaching, I think I had 88 women that went through all of my classes over the 3 days, and almost all of them were grateful. They were appreciative. They all walked away with a little aha to go work on at the range and just continue to develop that confidence. And it was just so rewarding. I don't even know that I have a word for it other than I'm not going to start instructing. That's not my goal. But if I can keep coaching and helping people, it is so powerful. And it's just it makes you feel good because you see people become more confident. And at the end of the day, we want our 2A friends feeling confident and
empowered.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what you were looking for. I don't know.
Yeah, no, to carry and just grow and motivated really to keep learning.
I like it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How exciting. Yeah. There was something about the energy there. I went and AI'd for an instructor, and being able to be around those women for just they'd finish a stage and then everyone would clap. You don't get that in a class very often, especially
or maybe in a group of women. Let's be honest.
For real.
Women
yes, 100%. Yes.
So it was like that. It was gone. It didn't exist. And I remember, I think at dinner, you and Tess and I were like, is this real? Where have these women been my whole life?
100%. They are the good side of the industry. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
Oof. Yeah. Especially because this industry can get so dark. I think it was Tessa actually one time she put it very beautifully. So I'm not doing it I'm not doing it justice here. Thank you. Words. Oh my gosh. Okay, guys, we're not feeling well. This is not our fault. She said something about this industry. There's a possibility that it can be kind of darker sometimes because the majority of people can come from a traumatic background. They could have come from that, and then it shunted them into their journey with firearms, maybe to protect themselves after something traumatic happened. Or again, she said it so beautifully. But
fear-based learning. It's coming from a place of fear, and so it's I have to do this versus I want to do this, and sometimes I feel like that closes off people's willingness and open-minded ability to accept new things or accept something different. And
I love that. Yes. Thank you. God, thank you for taking over. I was really stammering there. So
no, but it's also it's a very, up until I would say the last couple of years, it's been a very male dominated, the public facing people that talk about it has been very male dominated. And so from a educational component, it's also been very focused towards, military and law enforcement, and a very tactical, like, if you can't do this, then you have no right to be carrying a firearm. If you cannot do this, then you have no right to be shooting. If you cannot do that, right there, there's all these stipulations that have come in. And I think as people have evolved and the support for the industry has improved and grown, I think more people are willing to talk and educate themselves and seek resources that maybe weren't available prior, let's say 5 years prior. I think that a lot of people have dove into education and helping inform just because of the electronic sources that are available for people to learn from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And has that been an initiative of the LTD part of Langdon Tactical?
Our LTT Discover?
Yes.
Yeah. We started that. So LTT Discover was born basically post 2020. And it had kind of started before that, but it was also really driven from the fact of, I am so not tactical. I am not the person that before I walk out the door, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to have all these things. Right. And I live with a very tactical husband who does not leave the house without following his regimented routine. And for me, it felt like as I was adopting firearms and I was trying to dive into my carry journey, it was, you have to do this. And if you're not going to do this, then you cannot carry. You have to change your wardrobe. You have to change it. Like it was so revolved around changing who I was and how I was willing to dress or what I was willing to do that I was just like, forget it. I'm not interested. And as those conversations evolved and my husband learned that he needed to kind of accept me where I'm at and allow for me to grow not just in confidence, but also in capability and the resources that are out there, and explore what was going to work for me. It was like, gosh, there were no resources to look for. And I didn't know where to look, and I didn't know how to find it. And I had probably the most intelligent, knowledgeable person to ask, but it was regimented. And so as we kind of evolved and developed this, he really had some aha moments and was a little bit more open-minded about what could be acceptable instead of how he would do it. And it was a very eye-opening journey to head down. And we got Tessa Booth and John and Sarah Houtman and Akil Kadir involved in launching that. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect program, but we really tried to open it up and hit on some of the key things that were not just emotional, but also informational, and deliver the information in a non-tactical environment, if that makes sense. Oh,
absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like a good example to bring on the podcast is how to talk to kids about guns. I think that was that's a resource that I sent my sister. She's the first in our family to have a baby. So I know this year I got her Julie Golub's book, like how to talk to, I forget what it's called, but like, it's like a caricature book or something. I don't know, a cartoon book. I don't know what I'm trying to say, to help kids, oh my God, what's wrong with me? It's a kid's book. Why?
It's a kid's illustration book.
It's a kid's illustration. Thank you. Of how to handle guns in their environment. And there are not many resources like that. For someone that is questioning whether or not they should check out the courses you have, would you be able to give us a breakdown of what's available there?
Yeah, so it's not monetized. It's not really a course. It's just more of a resource of,
Lovely.
Am I looking for how to carry? Am I looking for information about ammo? What's the difference between sizes of ammo? I've got kids in the house. How do I even start talking to my kids about firearms? And that's going to be dependent on their age and their maturity. And it's kind of a guide. We have a guide that takes people through, the who, what, why, and where. And show, teach, and tell, but also don't make it fear-based if you don't have to, and just let the curiosity build, answer the questions, because the more straightforward that you are, the less, the curiosity killed the cat, issues you will have of like, they're exploring because it's this big secret. And
Absolutely.
And then we have some things focused around, awareness and confidence. And, it's a wide variety of stuff. Some of the videos are terrible. They're long. Sorry. Like we've all learned, we've grown.
Of course.
But there's still, the message is still the same, and right. the information is still the same. And there's even some, grip and training stuff. We have it's a very tactical training series, which is Ernest, and it's his, 3-day class in video form, for people that don't have the time or money to invest in, a 2-3-day class. We all know that takes an astronomical amount of time away from family work and resources. So, you can bite things off in little nuggets of where you're ready and just kind of go down the path of learning about shooting and carrying and having firearms in your home.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for those resources. And I know my sister is as well, because that's not something I can help her with when it comes to where I'm at in life. I barely know how to talk to kids about their favorite colors. So talking to them about guns is definitely not there. So
I had a girlfriend say to me, when I just had my son, and she goes, talk to him like he's an adult. And I don't know that I really knew what that meant.
Okay.
Then it was I was a new mom. I didn't know what I was comprehending. And as he's grown, I've just learned to have conversations with him and not, yes, you're going to protect them from certain things, but there are certain things that, you're not going to sugarcoat, and you're just going to be straightforward and honest. And I think that helped, especially on the firearm side. I think that helped us meet him where he was at in his maturity level and just be straightforward and talk about firearms as, yes, they are dangerous. It's a dangerous tool. They can be used for a very intentional terminal purpose, but they can also be used in sport. They can be used for careers. They can be used for reasons outside of that terminal purpose. And just trying to get all that to understand it, but still emphasizing how dangerous they are.
Honestly, since we're on the topic, I would love to take some time to dive into that. Are you down for that today?
Sure.
Because we're not necessarily winging this, but we've done this before. So we were just like, let's go. Let's do this today. I definitely have other questions for you based on things you said earlier. I want to talk about the dynamic of talking to your partner about training and what worked for you and Ernest. And I know that's something we touched on last time. So I'm really excited to hear that this time. So when it comes to talking to kids, obviously there are different developmental stages. So how do you work with their current developmental stage and almost escalate that as they get older? Or you just said you talk to them, you try to approach them like an adult in a way. So like, how do you scale that over time?
Yeah, great question. And what has worked for me in my experience has been meeting kids where they're at in their maturity level to be able to comprehend and understand what you're saying, and then what can they do with that information? And inevitably it comes up when they're young because you get a dinosaur, when they're 3 or 4, Mom, look at my dinosaur. And all of a sudden it's hitting your holster and what's that? And you're in public and you're like, oh my God, shh, don't say anything. Mom, is that your gun? Oh my God. Hi, come on, baby, let's go. Right. I mean, it happens to every mom or dad that is trying to carry, or they run up and they hug you and they get a big old Kydex nut on their head because they came to hug you, right? Your nieces and nephews, I'm sure.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And so you just kind of have to meet them where they're at and introduce it and talk about it. And, we're not going to talk about this here. But then also when we're at home, when he was asking questions, even if it was at the most inopportune time, Ernest and I just decided that we were going to stop and answer that question because the attention span is very short. So taking the time to explain and being very methodical about it, just okay, and then off, right? Because they get something in their head and they want to answer it. It's no different than adults, but children can't necessarily cognitively process the why or that end game because they're hyper focused on, this thing that's in their head.
That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. So kind of capitalizing on their interests in the moment. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And do you use any tools like a blue gun or even like a SIRT pistol to kind of help aid?
Honestly, we used real guns, unloaded real
Makes
guns.
Sense. Yeah.
And as part of the safety lesson, we did place them in places very supervised where, they were completely unloaded to test the teaching. Was he going to walk in and find an adult if he saw one? And it was not about our house, right? We know that we were being responsible, but what if he goes somewhere else? Is he going to cognitively connect that this is not okay? This is dangerous and I need to go get an adult. And that was kind of the first lessons. And then, as he got older, we took him to the range. He would ask questions. He knew that Ernest was teaching. So we took him to the range and let him watch. And then the noise was loud and it scared him. So then we left. Right. And it was a time commitment to go to the range and sit there for all of 5 minutes and then leave. But it's one of those, if you're trying to teach, you have to commit to the lesson. And then,
I like that.
We used visuals to show him what happens. When the gun fires and a bullet hits something, this is what happens. And, it's an eye-opening, shocking experience. And then when it came to him learning how to shoot, we started with a 22 caliber. If we had a suppressor for it, we had a suppressor for it and just made it as functional from an educational standpoint as possible and as little shocking less shocking as it could be. I don't even know how to say that, but we didn't want it to just be this complete fear thing. Does that make sense?
I love that. That does make sense. Yes. I'm trying to think of women I've trained with who have admitted that they didn't grow up around guns, and then, they're shooting with me for the first time, and they're just body language to the sound is very indicative of their past. Like it's easy to connect those dots. My sister's a good example. And of course, she's unique because she is an opera singer. She's getting her triple doctorate in opera and music education pedagogy. She's amazing. My mom was upset when I took her to the range. She was like, if she loses her hearing, she won't be able to match pitch very well. So no please give her good ear protection.
Yes,
exactly. Yes. Walkers, recons with foamies. Yes. Anyway, so we did that. And I remember I took her onto the range, and there was another guy at the opposite end. I asked for the lane furthest. And this is before I realized like I should have just taken her to an outdoor range, but it was winter time, and so I took her, and I forget how much people respond and jump to the sound. And I felt so bad. I forgot to warn her, like, hey, he's probably going to shoot randomly at some point, and it's not going to be towards us, hopefully. So just most likely, at least. But yeah, that makes total sense. The people that have come in and, they've been around their dad shooting, or they've at least been to the range a few times, like they're a little bit more expectant of it, and they might be nervous, but they don't have as big of a reaction. So like scaling it over time with where they're at developmentally makes total sense. But it's nice to hear it from your perspective. Sounds like it's been successful.
Different. For kids, for sure. And it's no different with adults, right? Like sometimes just getting people, if people are interested and they're willing to go, just getting them to the range and, holding their hand per se, while they shoot, and just letting them get those first 2 or 3 rounds downrange of like, okay, now what's going to happen and what's going to sound like. So now let's actually talk about gripping the gun. Cause you can have all those conversations, but then if it's a fear-based desire, I don't care who you are, there's still a shocking layer, whether you're male, female, a kid or an adult, there's still that shock value of what's going to happen. And I think getting past that moment and then dialing back to teaching is generally more productive for people to be able to receive that information.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. And speaking of introducing people to firearms, let's have the couples conversation, please, because this is a very common question. In fact, I was just working out. This is when I was a personal trainer and I was working at the gym during my master's. This guy came up to me and he was like, hi, I recognize you from social media, and Valentine's Day is coming up. I'm getting my girlfriend a gun. What do you recommend I do?
What gun should I buy her?
Yeah, basically. And I was like, well, does she shoot? Like, has she ever shot? And he was like, no. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this is a bigger conversation. And that's when it's one of those topics, like very, really high value topic. I try to bring it up as much as possible to get different perspectives on the podcast. But I think we have one other episode where we've really gone into a deep dive of this. So I'd love to hear about your experience being with Ernest. And then if you had to speak to someone seeking advice on how to get their partner into shooting, what would you tell them?
For the sake of your relationship, do not try to teach your spouse how to shoot. If you cannot go to the range and completely separate lanes of this is coach, this is student. It is not, but it was your tone. It's the way you looked at me. I mean, if you can't do it, don't even try for the sake of your relationship. We get asked that all the time because Ernest is absolutely my firearms coach. And people are like, oh my God, how do you do it? I can't do it. whatever. And I'd be lying if I told you we didn't have a handful of times where, lost our shit at the range and
of course,
right, it was over.
Yes.
And it was a very quiet, long ride home. However, I will tell you, we have been to the range hundreds and hundreds of times at this point. And it's always one of those, we set the precedents. Is this a coach student or are we going for fun? and,
Ooh, I like
and
that.
then, staying in that lane. And Ernest and I have worked together. I mean, there's a lot of people that say, how do you guys work together? Some days it's harder than others. But for the most part, we can do a very good job of staying in our lanes and understanding our roles. And so that is definitely very powerful. That being said, generally it is a significant other that is trying to get their significant other to become more familiar with firearms. And the best place to start is at home with an unloaded empty gun and dry fire. I think that just sometimes handling a gun is very scary, but also allowing your spouse or your significant other the opportunity to actually hold a firearm and look and see how it fits in their hands. How does it feel? Is it too heavy? Is it too light? Right. We've got the whole micro compact, full size compact discussion that we won't even get into, as part of this, but it really boils down to, can this person hold this firearm, and can they get a good solid grip on it with their strong hand and their support hand? Can they reach the trigger with their trigger finger? What is that distance of their reach? And just out of the gates, that is the best place to start. We tell everybody, go to a range that has a rental counter and just rent a couple guns. They may not be close to what you will end up with, but from a size, a recoil, the way the gun shoots perspective, the type of ammo that the gun shoots, is it 30? Is it 38? Is it 9mm? Is it 40? Is it 45? Please do not start your significant other on a 40 or a 45.
Amen.
But just getting people started there of understanding grip and size is the best thing to do before you go buy the pink or purple gun and say, here, you're going to carry it.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm thinking back to a student that brought her husband's Gucci Glock 19, and he sent her with hollow point rounds, which I thought was interesting. I guess they're more expensive. Yeah. So, I told her, I was like, you can totally shoot these, but they're going to be a little bit more expensive from what I've seen compared to, some training rounds. And I should remember thinking this is the guy that this episode is for. You know what I mean? And, but she did say after that lesson, they were going to go look at guns together. And, I told her, I was like, that's awesome. And honestly, learning on a full size is not a bad thing. I just thought it was.
A full size is going to be the least amount of shock value.
Yes.
In terms of the way the gun operates, right?
Yes, absolutely. It was his gun. I thought he had bought it for her, but she was like, no, he's going to take me to get one. And I was like, okay, cool. I was like, definitely keep training with this, and let's, try some other ones out. And luckily that range allows you to rent guns. So we had a few other students who brought their husbands' guns, but we absolutely got a different gun for the class. So,
but and that's great. There's not a problem with that, because at the end of the day, if it's a home defense and you're living and, a significant other is encouraging you, there's a reason and there's a why. And there's also a lot of power and familiarity and understanding how to operate. And so if you have guns in the home, helping build confidence is extremely powerful, and it's super productive. If it's for the purpose of trying to transition into everyday carry, there's a process that has to be followed, and it's going to take longer than you probably want it to, right? It may not, but it requires a lot of patience. And I think that is something that is really hard to understand for a lot of people. It's like, well, they've been to the range 2 or 3 times. It's like, yes. And for something that is second nature, generally to the person that is, trying to encourage this, taking the step to even consider it, let alone start to carry, is astronomical. And so it's just meet people where they're at, let them chug along and just build confidence, but also understand how guns shoot. Because that's going to, I believe, be imperative in the decision of that final firearm that you buy. Like, is it micro compact? Is it compact? Or is it full size? Because a micro compact is going to be a hell of a snappy gun to try to shoot and train on when you're first learning how to shoot.
Absolutely. If you don't mind sharing, what did you learn on?
My husband's going to kill me when he hears this. So I learned on a revolver.
Okay.
Shocker. My husband's the DASA guy. However, I believe, and I have said this to him multiple times, I think that it actually inhibited my adoption of firearms, especially into carry, for years.
Ooh, okay.
It was great. I mean, my trigger control, the way that I shoot, is phenomenal. So for all intents and purposes, it taught me to be a great shooter. Absolutely. However, the system for me mentally was very complicated for loading and reloading. And, knowing what I know now, there wasn't going to be any reloading, or because if there is, I'm probably in a lot of trouble and I'm not going to be able to handle it anyway. But also just the weight and the holster and then the big old belt on my pants. It was just so overwhelming to me that the gun sat over here and the ammo sat over here for years. So on one hand, I have to thank him because practicing on it made me a really strong shooter. But it inhibited my concealed carry growth immensely.
It's completely understandable. I want to say that I've heard revolvers being recommended for someone to start. When it comes to shooting in general, so just the act of shooting, and maybe not directly applying that to concealed carry, could you see revolvers as a healthy thing to learn on, or would you say overall it's best to start them on the platform they would most likely use, like concealment, like a semi-automatic? Are you in search of top-notch gear that exceeds your expectations? Look no further than GPS, brought to you by Go Outdoors Incorporated. GPS has been dedicated to crafting the finest products for hunting and shooting since 2002. As someone who frequents the gun range, my GPS bag is a staple to safely and effectively haul my gear. My personal favorite is the GPS Tall Range Backpack, which makes walking USPSA stages simple and organized. Their specialized bags are designed to keep all of my valuable equipment secure and organized. With GPS, you can experience the ultimate peace of mind. There are 3 exciting product lines: GPS Tactical, GPS Wild About Hunting, and GPS Wild About Shooting provide the perfect solution for your specific needs. So whether you're on a hunting expedition or hitting the range, GPS is your reliable companion. To find a bag that fits your needs, use code SHESHIELD20, that's SHESHIELD 20, to save and to support the pod. Again, that's SHESHIELD20 at checkout.
Oh, you just want to start a fight in my house, don't you?
Yes, I'm just kidding. Okay, I'll block him from She Shield so he can't hear this. Just kidding. I've actually never met Ernest, but there's my intro.
It's fine. We have differing opinions on this, right? Sure. And there is a group of people, conglomerate of people that are going to say, yes, start on a revolver. It's the best thing to start on. I'm not going to shit on that. That's how I started. That's how I learned. So I can't, whatever.
Right.
I also was in a relationship and doing a business that required me to go to the range a lot. So I was learning how to shoot and getting a lot more time behind a firearm than most people do in an entire year. So prefacing that and trying to avoid domestic argument at my house, I think that for the overarching public and for the millions of other people, starting on the type of firearm that you're looking to carry is smarter, because you're learning how to load a mag, you're learning how to insert a mag, you're learning how to drop a mag, you're learning how to drop the slide. If it's a DASA gun, you're learning how to run the decocker. I think that it's important to get comfortable on on the platform that you intend to be on for a minute, so that you can understand malfunctions. You can understand the trigger. You get comfortable with the trigger. You can build your grip, and you can really learn how to develop your support hand in line with your strong hand. I think that practicing on the gun that you are potentially looking to start carrying on is pivotal. And that's my opinion. And I am sticking to it.
You should stick to it. No, that makes total sense. Absolutely. I think I had my sister first shoot the DX macro. Even though like with her hand size, and so for those listening, I always forget P365 6R X macro. Because like even like SADA, so you were saying single action, double action, DASA, excuse me, double action, single action. When you first said that, I was like, what is she talking about? It took me a second. So I try to make sure I like say everything out for people listening who, you know, they come from all levels. That even took me a second. But I started her out in the 365 X macro, even though knowing her with her hand size and like her wardrobe, I feel like she would buy the standard for herself. So X macro, slightly larger, a lot more comfortable to shoot, at least for me with my larger hands. So I went to that platform for her thinking this will be the most applicable to what she'll probably end up purchasing. So I kind of had that thought, but it's really nice to hear from someone who directly learned from revolvers first. Also, I keep trying not to laugh. We keep muting ourselves to cough and drink water and do a lozenge. That's so funny. We're just rolling it. I love it. I love it. The commitment is real. But yes, so I'm loving this perspective. In fact, I don't think this exact topic has ever been discussed, like revolver for learning. This is very new. So I really appreciate it.
A big thing with the revolver is the trigger control, right? It is a longer, heavier trigger. And there's a whole, this is a rat hole that I don't think you or I want to go down, but for all intents and purposes, it's about pulling the trigger and how to pull the trigger. And I think about it as, I like to teach it as riding a bike, right? When you ride a bike, you want the pedals to continuously move. You don't stop, right? You don't ride a bike and like, oh, push, stop. Oh, push, stop. And so there are some people, especially when they're starting to shoot or they develop habits of, they see their sights, they're ready to pull the trigger and they're like, bang. And then they keep their trigger finger pressed to the rear of the gun, pinning the trigger. A revolver doesn't really allow you to do that because you have to release the trigger in order for it to reset, just because of the way the gun moves. And so that longer trigger pull really does teach you how to roll through that trigger and have a good, consistent trigger pull. And learning that is pivotal to shooting anything. If you can, have a good, consistent trigger pull, you will be more consistent in any platform that you shoot, because you get a lot less of that jerk. You're not pinning it. So you're not, the muscles in your hands aren't driving where the gun is going. It's, it's this agnostic operating by itself thing.
I really like that. And honestly, I have a confession. It wasn't until I just trained a bit with my
trigger pinner, aren't you?
Yes. Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I'm like also still learning what that is, but the connection point of like, this is so, I hate admitting this sometimes, but also like, I hope this gives someone hope that like, it's never too late. But like re-prepping the trigger as you're transitioning to like the next target. This is applicable. I'm specifically talking about like competition shooting. So like going from target to target, I would over confirm and I would wait so long so that by the time I was ready to pull the trigger again, I'd have to go through the entire process of resetting by the time I got there. And you can see it in my videos I post on social media. Trigger work itself is something I feel like I'm just now stepping into, which is wild. Like now that I'm aware of it, I'm like, where was I not paying attention? Like, has this not just been articulated well to me? But of course, I'm I always look within first because, you know, I have a little bit of ADD and, you know, so this is interesting to know. I feel like maybe that could have been helpful when I was learning in the beginning, at least training multiple platforms. Like going, I mean,
it's no different than lifting, right? If you're learning how to lift, or even if you're, you know, doing dumbbell work or you're doing barbell work, there's always power in dialing back to the fundamentals and working the basic fundamentals. If you're trying to do the cool guy thing, you're trying to do the cool thing and you want to practice and you're also having fun, you're shooting to have fun, that's fine. But understanding, finding the sights and trigger control and grip. Like for me, those three things, I'm still constantly working at those things. And knowing, I mean, self-awareness is key, right? But knowing that the gun has to reset is like, ooh, powerful, right? It's got to reset. Yes. Yeah. But you're just, you know, take your finger off the trigger and literally think about it. The next time you're at the range, think about it of like, oh, you know, I'm riding a bike. My finger's just on this bike pedal.
I like that.
It might be a very interesting aha for you of like, okay, release it. Like, I'm just going to shoot straight at this single target and I'm just going to develop this muscle memory.
Ooh, okay. Oh, I'm doing that.
It will help you. And
I like that.
Everyone will be like, oh, dry fire. Yes, dry fire will help everybody. How many people actually freaking dry fire? Okay, so if you're not going to dry fire, then practice it on the range and you will notice, because you notice also after those first 2, 3, 4 shots, your support hand starts to go. Why? Because the gun's moving and it just kind of throws off and you got to think about your grip. And so it's like the culmination of those three things tend to have a big aha moment.
Yes.
No matter how experienced you are at shooting.
That's a good point. I like that a lot. Yeah. And when you said it's like lifting, so deadlifts, I feel like that's my big one that I reassess my form all the time. Like I will go back down to, yeah. Oh my gosh. Just to like, I'll go back to just 95. So 45 pound bar, 25s on each side. Please tell me that's 95. Yep.
Yes.
It's and so I was like, wait, hold on. I don't normally do math that fast. Let me just check. And
especially in the gym, like you recount it 18 times.
Definitely not. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't use my calculator at all. So basically, I do this thing where I work really hard to max out on deadlifts, and then if I feel anything in my back, I will like stop myself and go right back to 95 and just like, I'll film my form from the side. I'll send it to my coach. I'll make sure I'll think about moving slowly through each motion, like 3 seconds on the concentric, 3 seconds on the eccentric, to really like listen to my back and try to feel if it's like my sacrum is dipping or whatever. And I have to do that a lot. And it feels silly. Like I have my master's in exercise science. I am a certified personal trainer. I like have a coach, and yet I still have to go back to fundamentals all the time. And so that's a really good point. And I feel like that doesn't get talked about in really many disciplines altogether. So appreciate you bringing that up. I need to just do that.
Do it.
I'm going to do that.
Girl.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Think about it like you do your deadlifts.
For real. And also, I think sometimes I don't give enough credit to going to the range just by myself with like even just a small plan. I feel like I tend to go with friends because it's so fun and it's a bit of a social experiment. And then we do like the most random shit sometimes. And I think Mike Seeklander has been one of my favorite people to go and train with because he always has a plan. It's always so structured to where like it's just enough reps where you get the best out of it. Why are you laughing?
I'm married to one of those. Yep. Fully understand. Yep.
Yes. And because I work with Livefire, I've been lucky enough to be able to jump in on his training sessions. And I'm like, oh, is this what that looks like? Like, is this what that's supposed to look like? So I hope that's somewhat encouraging to those listening that like, if you haven't taken the time to take yourself to the range and write out a little plan before you go, and that might even be something you want to speak to today. Is there a way that you structure your training to either readdress the fundamentals or work on a certain skill set to progress it?
Every time.
I love it.
I don't necessarily always go with a plan, but I always start and end my range training sessions the same. I shoot a double action, single action gun. So my first 20 shots are always 10 slow double action only shots. So decocking after every shot of like, I'm shooting this for accuracy. I'm shooting this for consistency, and I am shooting it. I'm not pulling the trigger until I see my sights. And then I transition. My next 10 shots are, one double action, single action, decock, one single action, or one double action, single action, decock. And it's just 2 shots. And all that I'm doing there is I'm checking in on my grip, I'm checking in on my sights, and I'm checking in on my trigger control. Right. And I'm evaluating, where did the bullets go and what needs work here? Do I need to grip harder with my left hand? Am I right eye dominant today, or am I left eye dominant today? Because it changes for me. And then, am I jerking the shit out of the trigger, or am I on my bike today? And so I start every session that way. And then, I'll do some fun, like, 3-2-1 drills where, 3 shots in a bigger target, 2 shots in a smaller target, another shot in a little target. Cause I shoot on like the target it has 10 little 2-inch circles on it, and then 2 big B8s, and then 2 little pasties in the center. And so I'll have fun with it. And then, I may be shooting a whole bunch of different guns. And then before I pack up and go home, I load 10 rounds in my carry gun, and I shoot 10 slow and controlled shots just to dial back that, adrenaline and fun, and wherever I was pushing myself. Was it speed? Was it target acquisition? What was it? And just dial myself back into 10 really good shots, recheck in with the gun, and then, empty it, holster it, and back it.
I like it. Yeah, I like that a lot. Even if you don't go in with a plan, now that you've mentioned personal training or just training in general, physical training, that's almost exactly what I do when I don't have a written regimen. I at least have the same mobility warm up, like walk on the treadmill 10 minutes, 3.4 miles per hour, 8% grade. Like I've got like a system where like that is it every time. So like, why would it be different on the range? I really like that. Thank you for sharing that. Seriously.
Of course.
And then you said when you go with Ernest, it's different a little bit because he has.
No, of course I learned that from him. I didn't come up with that.
Gotcha. Okay.
No, that's a him. That's a him thing. But it's something that I think I obviously learned it, and I've been very trained to do it. Yeah. But it is no different than how I approach working out, as you just said, right? It's no different than how you kind of approach your morning routine. Like you've got this routine, go through it. For me, the big mental thing for me is checking in with my firearm, right? Am I confident in what it's doing? Is it misbehaving, or am I misbehaving? Cause that means one of two things: it either needs to be cleaned, or I need to, slow down and get back to the fundamentals. And so I think it's really, it has helped me build my confidence, but then also knowing that I'm carrying this, it helps me know that I can confidently carry, because I know exactly how this gun is going to operate, and I know exactly where my, first check-in is going to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it makes sense that you adapted it from him. Yes, totally. Or adopted it. Adopted. Yes, adopted it. Yeah, absolutely. English has been hard. I think that's part of the virus. I think it gets into that part of your brain. But I'll leave that today.
Whatever we got going on, we'll just roll with it. The bags under my eyes.
Nope, totally feel that. It's cold outside. We're supposed to be like depuffed, but apparently not. No, that's awesome. I've loved this conversation in total. Not to totally pivot back, but this was a question I really wanted to hear your opinion on. A common one is, it's almost a level of frustration that I've heard men have with their female partners, of like the female doesn't want to touch the gun at all. But their concern is not even that they want them to carry concealed all the time. It's more so that they just want them to be competent with a firearm in the home for the family's safety and whatnot. How would you start that conversation with someone that you love and you You want them to be competent with the pistol.
To try to get them to become familiar with a firearm?
Yes. Like to get that conversation even started.
Yeah. So that's a tough one because forcing the objective is probably going to end in failure for both parties. Yeah. Because if anger or I have to is the driver, I think that a lot of people just mentally shut down. And so cognitively, you are not starting from a place of acceptance. You're starting from a place of, this is a requirement. I have to be here and I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. There's obviously a lot of power in learning to be uncomfortable, right? Getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. But this is different. This is a tool that often creates fear, right? Going to the gym is a walking through the four walls of vulnerability. You know,
oh my goodness.
Where am I at? It's no different when you're talking about firearms. A good place to start is always handling the firearm at home and trying to explain the why. If you are with somebody who is not interested and not open to it, then you're not really going to get anywhere. So how can you start to adopt that? Have the conversation and start to communicate. And it can't be, well, I need you to do this because we have this and you need to be responsible and you have to understand this, right? It's got to be a little bit more of around the conversation on like, well, this is why it's important to me. And this is why I want you to know and understand, right? How can you empower that individual? I want you to feel confident that if I'm not here, you know how to operate. You feeling confident is going to make me confident in your safety, right? Well, the response is probably going to be like, okay, well, I don't want to have that. I don't care. Like, I see it. I know it. I understand it. I'm just not interested. Then that's fine. Accept that. And then maybe try to have the conversation around, why are you scared? Why are you not interested? You know, and if somebody's trying to shut down that conversation, it's probably an argument you don't want to have, because the more that you try to force it, the more pushback for most people, I think you're going to have. The gift of fear, if you will, for a lot of people is real. And firearms, whether people have grown up around them, not grown up around them, you know, what are the resources that they've found? What's their why? They may not see a reason, and that's fine. If they don't feel like they live a dangerous lifestyle, they may say, you know what? I don't feel like I need it. And that's okay. But you have to be in a place to accept that and accept your significant other for where they are and not force it. Along those same lines, I think as a responsible gun owner, then, you know, those guns can't be accessible, because if your significant other has not been to the range and does not know how to operate, saying, oh yeah, there's a shotgun in the closet, just get it out and pull the trigger. Like, whoa. Right. Yes. And that is definitely a conversation that there was actually a guy here the other day that was having that conversation. And I looked right at him, and, you know, as introverted and quiet as I am, I was like, you really said that? Like, whoa, you need to back up, and you need to get off that train, because that is not, I mean, especially with a shotgun, like, holy crap. There's just whatever. I'll get off that soapbox, but
no, it's a good point.
I just think that if people are not willing to do it and they're scared, you've got to open up the communication and try to find resources that are not so in your face to open up the conversation, and just let it let it be a communication. If you can start with an outdoor range first, awesome. Yes. If you can't, then an indoor range, doubling up, foamies and over the ear protection is going to be pivotal. And you kind of gotta get to that point where they're willing to either watch, see, or physically shoot, before you can even open up the discussion of their willingness to be able to want to go with you to the range to shoot. My opinion.
I love that. Yes. That is so helpful. I also kind of want to add, if you're in the stages where maybe you're dating and you don't have a partner yet, and this is a thought you have, like, I really hope my partner is willing to take that journey on, and that's something that is important to you. As someone who has recently, that's been entered into my value system more and more over the years. At this point, to me, that's a non-compromisable. I want a partner who's willing to learn enough to be able to protect himself and my family in the future. I recently went through a divorce, and that's I've been reflecting a lot on my value systems, and that's something that I care about. And that's something I will look for in a partner. And that's okay. I felt really bad that was something I cared about, but I'm also thinking about having children someday, someday down the road. I'm still a child, so I can't have children right now. But anyway, excuse me, different story, different podcast. But I would like my partner to be able to handle, the safety of our children out in public. And that's everything from hand-to-hand skills to the use of a firearm if needed. And so that's important to me. And I've talked to a few other female friends of mine and about, they're in the dating life. And we've talked a little bit about that. And I don't know, is that something you would want to add to, or anything you want to add to that as far as value systems with firearms and how to go about finding that in a partner? I know that's very kind of tangential to this, but.
No, I think I understand what you're saying, and I understand that's important. I think that there's a layer of adoption or layers rather of adoption that have to be accepted along the way. Right. And understanding where you're at, and that if somebody is new to it, where they're starting from, and just helping develop, educate, communicate, and listen and understand. And that, I think that that's all part of the 2A education platform. Yeah. Right. Cause there's a lot of people that, the fear, while it's not unfounded, is not necessarily from a fully informed factual standpoint. Ooh. And so, what is the fear or belief, and why? And, having the conversation, not in an interrogational, controversial way, just in a, open the lines of communication. At the end of the day, communication is everything.
Yes.
And the more that we know, the more that we understand, generally, the more opinionated we all become. But allowing people to develop their own opinions and preferences it's pivotal, because you can have two different trains of thought, right? The foundation may be different. You can have two different trains of thoughts, but the end goal may be the same. And that's okay. You can have two different people that operate in it differently, but end up having the same end goal or end reason in mind. The path just may be different, and that's okay. Right? Let the path be different, but explore it together.
I like that a lot. Yeah, absolutely. It's very encouraging to hear. Seriously. Yeah, this is I never thought I would get into this field and be asked about couple dynamics and talking to people dynamics. It's actually quite a bit of psychology rather than, mechanics of guns and stuff. So this has been.
It is. And communication is pivotal. You got to have that strong communication and feedback loop of, to and from one another in order for it to be successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I definitely want to make sure we talk about your concealed carry, like transition to putting a gun on your body. I want to hear your perspective. This podcast is, I feel like recently we've had a lot of like combatives and competition shooters, and that's been so much fun. And I love all of that. But it's always nice to hear someone's story of how they like went from shooting a gun for the first time to now making it part of your wardrobe. What would you say that was like for you?
It took me a long time.
Yeah.
And it has been very different. I ebb and flow through the seasons of some days I will carry, some days I won't. Some days I off body carry, some days I have nothing. It really depends. My carry adoption, I dove in hard on that once Filster holsters came out with their Enigma. It was a game changer for me, primarily from a wardrobe perspective, and the lifestyle that I live and the clothing that I had of being able to still wear, the shorts and the t-shirts, the yoga pants and the tank tops, whatever that was, and not having to have a giant thick belt, a giant holster and, the big old wedge and all the things, Filster definitely changed my everyday carry. JM Custom Kydex's slim holsters changed my everyday carry because those holsters just felt right for me. The thinner belt era, EDC Belt Company and Hunter Constantine belts, that changed it for me as a female. And so that the ability to carry the tools that were available or are now available to carry definitely change what I can carry and how I carry. I mean, I ended up picking a firearm around the Filster Enigma setup just because that was really practical for me. And so I think there are people that are going to approach it very differently. But I do not carry every single day. Right. I just don't. And that's a decision that I make. And, would Ernest maybe want that to be different? It's not a maybe, it's a hard yes. But he's completely accepted where I'm at, and that's okay.
Absolutely. Right. Yes. So I see where the communication importance is coming from. Yes. That makes sense. No. And I love all of those were resources that I completely agree with. EDC Belt Company is smaller, but I had the chance to meet them and feel their products. And it's similar to the makeup of Hunter Constantine's, right? It has the, for those of you that don't know, the softer back of the belt and then the more reinforced structure in the front of the belt for your holster clips. Is that right? Is that also what they do?
Yeah, the EDC belt is definitely a more sturdy belt.
Okay.
And it's, for a range belt, it's absolutely phenomenal. For an everyday belt, it's fine. The Hunter Constantine belt is very, very thin. It's not as rigid, which is harder to run at a range, from time to time in training. But it's one of those, people say, oh, you got to train with what you carry. Yes, that's true. But there are modifications that may be made for your everyday carry to fit around your lifestyle. And that is okay. I am here to tell you that is okay. You may be giving up certain things. How do I say that? You may be giving up certain, requirements if you're going to head to the range and shoot hundreds of rounds for your everyday carry to make it more comfortable. At the end of the day, if it's what brings you confidence and what feels right and is concealable for you, then game on, follow that path, because if you're not confident, you're not going to be comfortable.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned off body carry. That's a topic that I've tried to bring into the podcast a little bit more, because I used to be very anti, because it was so easy to say, it's easy to be like off body carry is bad. Only wear the Filster Enigma. Like, I was prepared to die on that hill because that's the only hill I knew of. And I said this on a recent episode. I recently had an abdominal tear. Like, the fascia between my rectus abdominis tore And the thought of putting a gun on was like painful itself. So I had to off body carry for, I think, a full 2 months just to not put pressure on my abdomen. And so for those of you listening, that's, I think, what opened my mind the most. I mean, I off-bodied before that to try it out because I had so many women write in about it. And I was tired of not knowing enough about it and speaking on it. And I got to the point where I just didn't say anything, and I wanted to be able to give something good. And recently, actually, this is not NDA material, so I could say this, but I'm actually coming out with it's a dressy fanny pack. This is something I was like, wow. There isn't one out there that I know of, at least, that I consider safe and something I would carry, or I'd give my sister to carry. So I'm coming out with that with Zindira. There's so many good things about that. We're going to do an entire episode series on that. The episode with Andrew Henry already released. We have developed a off-body carry holster that's fully Kydex. It's backed by a Tegris placker in Velcro. And that is the mechanism by which we are showing storage of the gun inside the fanny pack. So it's a very safe system. We're so excited. I was so excited to tell you. I thought I would wait and tell you on the podcast.
That is awesome.
Thank you. It's so cool.
Andrew Henry and the Henry Holsters team is phenomenal.
Oh,
so you are in good hands with them.
Right. And you know what's insane? I consider Andrew a friend in the industry. That group is small, but I wrote him just thinking, sorry, that was a weird thing to say, but it's my podcast, so I guess I'll keep it in there. But I wrote him asking just like a general question on like fanny pack holsters on the market. And it ended up being this project that the three of us came together, incredible. Julie, the owner, we went out to Indiana, and we pretty much have our final set. We have a few things in the process right now. I don't think I'm allowed to say quite yet on the podcast, at least. I'll tell you after, but that will, yes. Quit. I was already going to ask you. That's crazy. My okay. Wife. Awesome. Please. Oh my goodness. Because I love a bodycon dress. I love a bodycon dress. I love my muscles and like my look. Okay. And guns don't work with that typically. Sometimes it can work with Filster Enigma. I made it work on some pretty tight dresses, I will say, with some smaller pistols like my Rose XL. But as far as wearing a true bodycon and like maybe more casual day where I have like a big coat and I want to wear like a purse, I will be able to do that with this fanny pack. Like my Vertex fanny pack is not going to look cute with that outfit with heels. Like,
I mean, God bless Vertex, God bless 511, God bless all the people coming up with, what they need to do. I think it's great. Yes, you are opening up options, opportunities, and things that are not out there for people. But there definitely is the fashion piece. There is and it's not necessarily trend as much as it's lifestyle. Like, what is my lifestyle and what am I willing to forgo or not forgo as part of the journey, which I think is where off-body carry comes into play for a lot of primarily women, because we generally do always have a bag. I think that there are some rules and regs that if you are going to off-body carry, you can't go into a restaurant or an event or somewhere else and just set the bag down and then be like, hey, my gun's in there. Don't let anybody touch it. Like, you're not going to do that. So if you are going to off-body carry, you have to be responsible and make sure that it is always on your person, in some form or fashion, or, attached to you in some form or fashion, because that's how things can go south really quickly. And so there's, there are different rules and regs there. And I'm sure there are people that would be like, oh, that's not responsible, but people do it. So if you're going to do it responsibly. Yes. I think this off-body carry concept of trendy bag is super exciting, because that's, at the end of the day, that's how a lot of us have moved into life, right? Your minimal phone, minimal wallet, and I want to have my gun. So how can I do it and still let it fit and not scream, oh my God, I have a gun on me?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes. And I'm actually more likely, this this may even just be a common thing that I don't realize is common, but if I'm dressed up, I'm more likely to have a bag with me, to have like my lip liner and my lipstick and my powder. And I don't like to carry my phone because it doesn't really go with like the cuteness of the outfit. So like having a bag to put all that in is actually something I enjoy. And I've tried to rig some of my purses, but they're not made with concealed carry in mind. So this is going to be a really cool thing. Oh, I'm so excited. It's going to definitely be
so awesome. Congratulations.
Oh my God,
I'm excited
thank you.
to see
I can't wait
that.
to get one to you. Oh my goodness. Yay. I'll have to tell
amazing.
Julie. I'll text her after this episode. I was planning on it anyway. So that'll be fun. How do you, if you don't mind, I definitely want to hear this from you, structure your training for off body? Is it any different than your IWB, carry?
So I don't like go train with it. There are classes out there. There are people that are out there. I don't. I know that the accessibility to that firearm is going to be inhibited. I know that the time to firearm is going to be slower. And I just make sure that I know exactly where it is and how to access it. Right. It's generally in a separate pocket. There's nothing in there. There's no, I have my own mental checklist that I go through, of making sure that I'm doing it responsibly and that I'm not doing it where there's a place for other things to potentially get caught in between the holster and the trigger guard on the gun, right? It's a whole different layer of responsibility and where things are at, because you don't want loose change, little Legos or anything able to slip in there. And so there's a lot of considerations that have to happen there. I wouldn't say that I take that part out.
Got it.
I do not go to the range and, train with a gun out of my bag.
Yeah.
Some people say that's irresponsible. They can say whatever they want.
Absolutely.
This is the decision that I have made.
Right.
I know where it is. I know the inhibitors that exist with that. But this is, if that's what I'm choosing to do, that is where I'm at and what I have chosen to do. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'll be honest as well. This is a little confessional hour. I do not train off body as much as I carry IWB, or as much as I train IWB. That's probably because I majority carry IWB. But I, at least when I throw my gun into a bag, I try to do a few dry fire reps before I leave home. I'm not perfect though. It's so easy to get into the habit of not doing that. But if I switch, like if I go from carrying off body for a while to IWB, I tried to do some dry fire IWB in that outfit, especially if the garment's really low. It's a dress, it's really far down.
Sure.
There are ways you can,
the accessibility of it.
Exactly. Yeah. There are ways to train that. The mechanics stay the same from there though, especially if your draw stroke is broken down into the same steps. Like once you reach like a certain access point, like once you get from 1 to 2, everything from there on is the same. So like just knowing what that's going to look like for you and understanding the potential risks. You're exactly right? The time, it takes a lot more time, not a lot more, maybe for me, it's like, I think it's like 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds, depending on if the zipper gets stuck. And the bag we're working with is actually magnets for that reason. But anywhere from like, I'm so excited to show you, 1 second to 3 seconds longer to draw that gun. And like, I'm completely aware of that when I go out. And I'm not saying I'm more aware when I wear a bag, but it is on my mind that like, I definitely have this thing now that someone can
desert it. Yep.
Yes, I can't desert it. And also, like, I really don't want someone getting close because, like, they're probably going to go for my bag if they're trying to rob me or something.
You're more hyper aware. Yeah.
Yes, I almost hate to admit that because it's like, I'm always aware, yes. But, like, when I off body carry, I'm like, oh, shit, man. Like, really, today's not the day, man. Like, get me tomorrow when I got my Enigma on. But, but also, I still feel confident because I'm aware of how I'm carrying. I've trained enough with it. I do my little dry fire, but absolutely. It's what you choose. And that's the point of this podcast, to hear what guest speakers do for them, what works for them. So I appreciate you sharing that, truly. Yeah, we have covered a lot of territory. I've loved every second of this. Not only do we talk about how to talk to your kids about guns, we talked about talking to your partner. We talked about starting on a revolver for concealment, what it's like transitioning into concealment for the very first time, and that path. So 2025 is coming up. I'd love to know, do you have any goals? Is there anything coming up that's exciting for Langdon Tactical, for yourself as a coach that you want to share?
We have a lot of things happening in 2025. Personally, the 2025, I've said, I think for the last 3 years that the next year is going to be the year of balance. So I'm going into 2025 hoping that this is something that we for sure dive into personally. For our family is balance and a little bit less chaos that seems to follow. For the business, we have some cool, exciting stuff happening, some new innovations, new products for, other markets, diving in and outside of where we've lived for the last several years. So that's super exciting. We plan to do some revamping on LTT Discover to continue to educate and be informative in the 2A space, and to encourage people to build their confidence as they venture out into their carry journey. And then from the firearms perspective, I got asked to be part of Trigger Time TV. So I'm doing a couple different lessons on that.
How exciting.
Yeah, I think that'll be fun. I hope it'll be great. We'll see. Maybe it won't, but I hope that it will be great. Absolutely. And then I'm excited to head back to A Girl and a Gun and spend 3 days coaching some pretty amazing women, and give Robin a hug to thank her for what she's doing for this community. And
absolutely.
I mean, we still got our trade shows and our places to run into people. And that's always fun. So 2025 will be great, but I think we have some new and exciting paths that we are venturing down.
Yeah, sounds like it. How wonderful. One time you said balance and it triggered a memory. I was talking to my therapist one time, and she said, this is right before she was quitting being a therapist. She was going to go to run the company as the CEO. So she was like, I could say anything I want to. And she was like, I'm not going to lie to you. The one constant about balance is that it's always changing. Like, it's never the same balance. Like, it's like constantly shifting. And I think that changed my life. And I'm not saying that like that's your solution, like you should just take this on and everything gets better.
No,
but
you're dead on.
Holy crap. Like, I think you're probably finding the balance every year, kind of like this, you know what I mean? Like, it's just probably a new norm. Yeah, a new normal. Yeah, exactly. Because like from my perspective, you're freaking killing it. And like, you even have these new opportunities popping up that would not be popping up if you weren't finding your balance. So I'm just saying, but also not to invalidate the feeling of feeling imbalanced, because you are balancing a lot. So I'm excited to see where you go. I'm excited to see you at A Girl and a Gun. I'm going to try to be there and at least AI for a new instructor and try to get some like balance, but I haven't figured out how I'm going to like get in this year. Last year, I totally snuck in under a different instructor. So I was just like, I waited too long to go under Tatiana. So but I may hit her up and be like, but yeah, that's wonderful. 2025 is going to be lovely. Yes. And you are going to SHOT.
Yes, I will be at SHOT.
I've only asked you that 3 times.
What are your 2025 goals?
Oh, damn. Why are you gonna do me like that? So, 2025, oh God, I've been throwing this question out to people. What's really exciting, of course, divorce is a terrible thing when it comes, as far as the emotions involved, but it is an exciting venture to see what might be next, because I'm geographically not held down. I could go anywhere, and I think right now I'm looking at this year as like the year of travel, adventure, meeting so many new people, training from, as many instructors as I can. And meanwhile, my biggest focus is going to be building my own curriculum. I started as a firearms instructor with very little experience, and I'm still, in the grand scheme of things, just a baby in this industry. So my goal is to really be intentional with my personal training. So not only my private sessions with myself, but also getting repeated feedback from instructors like I do with my coach for fitness. And then utilizing that to structure a curriculum that I'm actually excited about. Because I came from the NRA space where I basically just copy and pasted. I hate admitting that, but that's exactly what I did. And I would never feel right after the end of those classes. I think I was able to give the women's perspective, and we would go into other things like concealed carry, non-lethals, pepper spray, things that like an NRA course wouldn't go into. But I still, at the end, something didn't feel right. And so I stepped down from teaching those classes. And I think it was the best thing I could have done to just like really be honest with myself about where I was at and to revamp my curriculum. So that's what I feel like 2025 is for, a time of rediscovery, reestablishment. And I feel like I'm walking right now so I can run then. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. And then, of course, coming out with a concealed carry bag, coming out with an educational course to go alongside that so people can actually learn how to use the bag properly, learn how to store it in their home. That's going to be a really big thing to come out of next year. And I've got a great team to do that with. And then, yeah, I've made so many friends this year that I'm excited to invest time in them when it comes to collaborating on things in the industry. That's kind of vague for now because that's very early stages. But yeah, starting with SHOT Show though. So I will see you there. That'll be good. It'll be a good time.
Will be there.
We'll take our vitamin C, D, and zinc, and hopefully.
I've checked that box, so I'm on the other side of that. It's not allowed to happen after SHOT.
It's not. I agree. It's not allowed to happen. Absolutely. We'll just put that in the universe. I was deathly ill last year. I didn't get sick the first year, but second year was rough. It was very rough. So,
well, hopefully the start of 2025 and your reestablishment and rediscovery does not start with the disease of SHOT Show, or
an immune system,
crud, as everybody calls it. Yeah,
exactly. Yes,
but good things will happen, and that's exciting. I'm excited to see what you got going on. Don't forget to pass that along.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes. And thank you for coming back on the episode. This has been one of my favorites, and I always feel bad saying that. It's not like I don't like any others, but just really just felt encouraged by everything you said, and everything, even if I've been through it myself, it was a good reminder when it comes to getting my, other family members into firearms, and like having that patience and communication. It's always worth developing. So thank you so much for your perspective today. I hope it was encouraging to listeners. I know it will be. And yeah, is there anything else you want to leave the listeners with before we end out today?
Happy New Year, guys. Let 2025 be what it is for you.
I love it. For those of you listening, this full video and audio is on YouTube. I always forget to say it in the beginning, but if you're interested in seeing that, please check that out. The lovely Lisa Hamilton does those shorts you see that are so popular on Instagram, as if we're not being suppressed right now. So if you're interested in going and seeing those, you'll get to see clips of our guest speakers with some impressive B-roll and just some engaging content to get you excited about the episode if you're not sure which episode you want to listen to next. That is at She Shield Pod on all platforms: Instagram, TikTok, Livefire, YouTube, and everywhere else pretty much. All resources mentioned in the episode will be listed in the show notes, which are the notes below the podcast title. And if you liked the podcast, you can help by liking, subscribing, and leaving a review. We are now at, I believe, 4.9 stars. So if you want to help bring that up, go for it. And if you or anyone you know is a firearms owner experiencing a crisis, look into holdmyguns.org. They are an organization that will connect you with a local gun shop or FFL to store your firearm for you. The link to access their website and to find a storage location partner is available in the show notes. Thank you for listening. In the meantime, stay safe and stay vigilant. Are you searching for a brand you can trust when it comes to shooting and gun care products? Look no further than Birchwood Casey. Since 1948, serious shooters, avid collectors, and professional gunsmiths have relied on Birchwood Casey. They've been in the game for over 70 years, providing us with products that have stood the test of time. From their legendary True Oil gunstock finish to the dependable Perma Blue, Birchwood Casey's commitment to quality is unmatched. Birchwood Casey has also revolutionized the way we train and improve our shooting skills with their innovative shoot NC targets. These targets let you see your shots instantly, making it easier than ever to track your progress and become a better marksman. Head over to birchwoodkc.com today and discover the products that have earned the trust of shooters worldwide. And use code SHESHIELD20 to save 20% on your order and to support the podcast. Again, that's SHESHIELD20, SHESHIELD 20 at checkout. Happy shooting.